But let me just share with you just a few book reviews because we have this amazing bookstore. Do you know that it's won the Christian Bookstore Award for the last 2 or 3 years? It's absolutely fabulous, but it's hard when you walk in there. You don't even know where to start. There's so much in there. I'm going to give you a little help with that, and I'm going to start with just a few Christmas books, because these are seasonal and we've just got a couple weeks left. But this little one is one of my favorites by Nancy Guthrie, who spoke for us this summer at Girl Talk. And this is a great little stocking stuffer, but trust me, this is my gift to myself this year. This is so sweet. It is, a book called Let Every Heart Prepare Him Room, and super busy at Christmas time. I know you all are just like I am. This little book has the sweetest devotionals, and then in addition to that, those of you who have families or even for your own reflection, there are opportunities within this little treasure of a book that give you discussion questions. So if you have little ones or teenagers, to sort of involve them, really great reflection questions. And I love this little book. It's super tiny and it's really affordable as well. This one is another great one. This is C is for Christmas by Warren Wiersbe and his son David. And they go through the entire alphabet and every aspect. I got a little creative when you got to the X, Y's, and Z's, but every aspect of the Christmas story is covered in these little vignettes, starting with the letter A and going all the way through. So if some of you feel like something is missing and you're celebrating Christmas this year, this is a unique collection that is going to help you deepen your appreciation for all that God has shown us in His Word about that amazing Christmas story. All right, this is super good too. Okay, not the cutest cover. It's called Counting the Days, Lighting the Candles. This is a self-published book by Elise Fitzpatrick, so it's kind of hard to find this one. But those of you that have heard Elise in the past know she has this breezy, easy, humorous way of speaking, and you're going to enjoy this. It's called Counting the Days, Lighting the Candles. So if you're looking for something to help your family celebrate the Advent season, this is an amazing little book. She has crafts and projects. Now, for those of you that aren't crafty, I say that word and you're like heart palpitations, like, don't give me one more thing to do. I mean, they do simple things like go on a scavenger hunt, but there's something there for your little ones to get involved in understanding the Christmas story. And so this is really a sweet book with Elise and her daughter, Jessica. And then the last two Christmas ones I wanted to mention are, Aunt Willie didn't share this morning about how they celebrated Christmas at the Jordan house, and I wish she had because it was so sweet. She shared how Uncle Fred would get up on the roof and she'd have all 7 kids in their king-size bed with the trundles pulled out and all the children gathered around, and he would get up on the roof and make hoof sounds, clop, 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 like Santa's sleigh was coming. And for those of you that in the 70s, we came out of the Jesus movement, it was almost like we didn't even talk about Santa Claus. We removed that aspect of the story. We wanted to focus on Jesus, which was great. But there are some fun little things that can go along with Christmas celebrations, and I don't think we need to be all holier than thou about it. And this little book, this one, is called Letters from Father Christmas. And how many of you have been to the movies and seen any of the Hobbit or the Lord of the Rings trilogies? You like the Chronicles of Narnia, that's right up your alley. Well, think about this. J.R.R. Tolkien, this amazing Oxford Don who was brilliant, would take the time on Christmas Eve to write his children a letter, and he told the most amusing and humorous and delightful stories to his kids. This is a collection of almost 30 years of writing. It's just so sweet. And these are the actual photographs and drawings that he did in the actual letters that he's written to his kids. So you're going to enjoy this. I love this little book. And then lastly, this is a really sweet one. My granddaughters love beautiful pictures. They're all girly. And this one is by Mary Engelbright. And I don't know if you know this, but she has a beautiful Christmas book out. And this is not just Santa Claus and Jingle Bells. This is totally Christ-centered. So it's called Peace on Earth, a Christmas collection. And with her amazing illustrations, I don't know if you can see how beautiful that is. Classic Mary Engelbright. She's been doing cards for years. But this she includes in there Christmas carols, the Christmas story, beautiful Christian poems. This was one of my favorite by the classic poet Christina Rossetti. Love came down at Christmas, love all lovely, love divine, love was born at Christmas, stars and angels gave the sign. So those of you that would love to share some wonderful traditional Christmas hymns and poetry along with these amazing Mary Engelbreit illustrations, every page is just super colorful and beautiful. How many of you know this has been around a long time, Tale of Three Kings? Oh, Tale of Three Trees, sorry about that. This is the story that has been retold by Angela Ewell Hunt, and the illustrations, which are amazing, by Tim Yonke. But you know what's really amazing about this particular edition that I love is this is a recordable Tale of Three Trees. That wonderful story that we all may be familiar with, those of you who have children who don't live at home or grandchildren who live out of the state or far away, you can record your voice, Papa or Mama or Grandma or Grandpa or whatever they call you, Mimi or Nanny or whoever, you can record your voice reading them the story. So even though you might not be able to read them bedtime stories, they can hear your voice, and that's a sweet thing to hear. And then, any of you who come to the Virtue Bible Study already know about the Jesus Storybook Bible because I have referred to this so often in my teachings. This is a storybook Bible for children, but trust me, the writing is like prose. It is so beautiful, so simple, so theologically rich that I know pastors who keep this out and read it themselves. And pastors, I've read it to Greg if that helps you at all. It just starts out right from the very beginning. Some people think the Bible is a book of rules, telling you what you should and shouldn't do, and the Bible certainly does have rules in it. They show you how life works best, but the Bible isn't mainly about you and what you should be doing. It's about God and what He has done. Others think the Bible is a book of heroes, showing you people you should copy, and the Bible does have heroes in it, but as you'll soon find out, most of the people in the Bible aren't heroes at all. They make some big mistakes, sometimes on purpose. They get afraid and run away, and at times they are downright mean. But this is a book that is a story, an adventure story about a young hero who comes from a far country to win back his lost treasure. Those of you that want to read the Bible story in a fresh way, I'm telling you, you don't need a kid or an excuse to get this. This is the large print edition. I keep it out where I can reach for it. I don't know, sometimes it just speaks to me. By the same author, who is Sally Lloyd-Jones, and the same illustrator, Jago. He and she have put together this one. This is devotional thoughts for children. So this isn't a Bible story per se, but it is a collection of devotional thoughts from everyone like C.S. Lewis, Amy Carmichael, Martin Lloyd-Jones, John Stott, Tim Keller, some of the finest Bible teachers and writers that are out there. She's simplified some of their devotional thoughts and put them in this little book. Awesome. If you're already gone through the Jesus Storybook Bible and you want more, like I did, I wanted more from this amazing writer, that's available as well. And then this, I love this, the Action Bible, okay? This Bible has been around. They had the first version of it when my oldest, Christopher, was little, and he grew up to be an artist, and he loved illustrations. What kid, especially boys, don't enjoy reading a comic book? Well, this takes 200 of the top Bible stories, key stories from the Bible, with an amazing visual presentation. Look at that. Every bit as good as DC or Marvel Comics have. And this is telling them the Bible story. When I was reading the reviews online about this, one man wrote that there was someone in his life who had never read the Bible, had no interest in reading the Bible, but when he saw this, said, you know what, I'm going to read that. That was an entree for an adult to start reading. So that's a great one, especially for boys. Lenya Heitzig's little grandson, Skip and Lenya's, was in our bookstore, and all of the books were out, and that was the book he reached right off the shelf and grabbed and started looking. Okay, so We're coming to the end of the Advent season, and we'll be starting the new year. And what better way to start the new year with a couple devotional thoughts for you? Not devotional thoughts, devotional recommendations. And I have to recommend this one by our own beloved Pastor Greg. This is 40 years of favorite devotions that he has written. It's in a beautiful leather-bound edition, and I wanted to read you one little insert here. It's called Standing Strong. Watch, stand fast in the faith, be brave, be strong. And this is what Greg writes. There will come times in all of our lives when we will be tested in our faith. There will be times when what we believe will be challenged, and there will be temptations to do the wrong thing. We might ask ourselves, will I be able to stand strong spiritually when this happens? This is entirely up to you. It isn't up to God, it's up to you. God wants you to stand, but he will not force you to stand. He will give you all the resources you need. He will give you the power to resist. I mean, Greg's just like, gets it right in there. And I love that. And then, okay, these are, for me, before I do our lesson when virtue study is in session, I start the morning with my cup of coffee and this. This is this is my journal. This is the Daily Light Journal that was given to me by a dear friend. It's the Anne Graham Lotz version, and I have pages and pages of notes that I have written through the years that I've kept this. The beauty about this journal is that you don't fill it up and set it aside. You go back over it because it has the daily readings right there and a space alongside of it for you to make your notes. And I'm not a big journaler. I never was a big journaler, but I had started when I got this making notes of things I was praying for, things that I was going through, tough things I was facing, problems, trials, whatever. And as I've gone back over and I reread it every year, and there's one for every day of the year, I look over what God did in my life, where I was at in those hurting places, and I saw how faithful he was to bring me through the answered prayers. 1 year later, I could see. It's just an awesome thing to start, and it is in the bookstore. I don't think that this is really even still in print, but our bookstore has obtained a bunch of copies for you, so be sure to ask for the Daily Light Journal. The Daily Light's been around in many versions. That one I love because it has a journal. And then after I do that, this is my Through the Bible reading program, okay? There's the 1 year Bible, very popular. My problem with some of the 1 year Bible reading systems, and this is my own preference, is that I found myself reading things in the Old Testament and I had questions. It's like, why did God do that? Why would God say, move in this way at this time? And I would have these questions, but because I'm in this Through the Bible, I had to get to the next section to be reading it, and I would have questions I didn't have time to necessarily research on my own. Well, let me share these 2 volumes. This is For the Love of God, and it is compiled by D.A. Carson. It's based on the famous Scottish minister, Robert Murray McCheyne, and he had a reading program that he had for himself and for his family. And what he does is for every one time you go through the Old Testament, you're hitting the New Testament 2 times and the book of Psalms 2 times. So here's how I do it. I use volume 1 first, and when I'm done with volume 1, I move to volume 2. At the end of doing both of these volumes, and this takes me 2 years, I will have read through the New Testament twice, Psalms twice, and the Old Testament once. But what I really love is that this amazing Cambridge University PhD is a research professor of the New Testament, and he's a great theologian. And when I have found that there are certain questions, and you have 2 readings per day if you do it in a 2-year plan, 4 years a day if you do it in a 1-year plan, is that he often picks up on those areas that I have wondered, why did God say wipe out every man, woman, child, beast, those kind of questions, and he gives me a theological understanding of it. They're about 1.5 pages long, the daily readings, so awesome way to begin reading through the Bible. I highly recommend that. 2 little books, actually not so little, but awesome books on marriage. This one by Jim and Elizabeth George. Those of you who know Elizabeth George, she wrote a book, A Woman After God's Own Heart, which was the very thing I used when I had my first daughter-in-law. I didn't have girls, and we started with A Woman After God's Own Heart, and that was my mentoring outline with Brittany. And now this is a book called A Couple After God's Own Heart. And this is to build a last and loving marriage together. Jim and Elizabeth write both male and female voice speaking to you, so it's a great one to give to your kids who are getting married or are engaged, or for you and your husband to do together. There are 10 fascinating couples that are featured in this book. I love this. David and Bathsheba, and they title that chapter A Second Chance Marriage. Isn't that great? And then Mary and Joseph, I love this. The title on that is called A Couple in Crisis. It's really an excellent book. And then I have this one. This is a new book by Johnny and Ken Tada. Those of you may know Johnny Erickson, who was, she in a diving accident became a quadriplegic as a young girl. And then later on in life, God gave her a ministry, and she met and married her husband, Ken. You think it's a happily ever after love story, but this couple has gone through the fire, and not only dealing with Johnny's quadriplegia, but also just the ongoing struggles, the day in and day out, not only physical challenges, but the emotional challenges that Ken went through as her husband. This book is so honest and transparent. I think sometimes we think of Johnny and Ken as sort of like stained glass saints. They know how to suffer. They're so special. But let me tell you, in this book, you're going to see the depths of which they had struggled and how God met them there. It's completely authentic and honest. It's beautiful, not only dealing with her quadriplegia, but for those of you that don't know, she deals with chronic pain. You wouldn't think that a person who can't really feel below their neck actually can feel pain, but it's really, really been devastating physically to her to deal with this chronic pain and not knowing even where it is coming from. And then after that, her breast cancer, her mastectomy, and her ongoing struggle with pneumonia, which eventually is the very thing that kills quadriplegics. I read this in one sitting. That's one of the blessings of being on recess from Bible study right now. I couldn't put it down. It challenged me in my marriage. Am I loving with a sacrificial love that Christ has me to love with? And it's so beautiful because at the end of the book, you see Jesus in this couple, especially in Ken, in the way he is laying down his life for his wife. It is amazing. Okay, Not by Sight by John Bloom. These are Bible stories, mainly in the New Testament, where we take a fresh look at these old stories. You can almost feel, as you're reading them, the desert sand beneath your feet. I'm telling you, it is absolutely, it's done in a dramatic way. They're brief stories from the New Testament, and they're very memorable. It puts you right in the scene. So if you want to read a Bible story and you're familiar with the Bible text, sometimes an author can put it into just a narrative where it becomes almost like a piece of fiction that you're writing, only it's not fiction. Here's this book by Anne Spangler. You may be familiar with Praying the Names of God. She has Praying the Attributes of God. Did you know that God is not only loving, but he is holy, that he is good and righteous, but that he is also jealous? The attributes of God, she puts it in chapters, and you will be taught how to pray through, and she gives you a good leg up on understanding God. He is no longer going to be the one that you find very confusing, but you're going to find this tangible take on who God is. My last two recommendations, Captive in Iran. This is a story of Marion and Marzi, these two young women. I don't know if you can see it, but you look at this picture, and they are so glamorous and so gorgeous. These two young ladies that were raised in Muslim households but were not practicing Muslims came to faith and were imprisoned for evangelizing in Iran. They spent a little under a year in that notorious prison there called Evin Prison, and their faith, if they would have denied their faith and embraced Islam, they would have been released. But instead they stayed, and in this horrible, chilling story, you see how the light of the gospel shone so brightly, and it's got a beautiful end to it, and I think you'll be really inspired. And then lastly, Anne Graham Lott's Wounded by God's People. And if you ever wanted to know what Anne was really like, you're going to find out in this book. I mean, she's such a powerful speaker and Bible teacher, but she is so real in sharing how as a result of being wounded in a church where her husband was no longer accepted to be an elder, they actually quit going to church for a whole year. I was just absolutely flabbergasted to hear that. But she talked about what it feels like to be wounded by God's people, using the story of Hagar, who was cast out of Abraham and Sarah's household. And she not only shows what it's like to be wounded in the church, but how often people who have been wounded become wounders themselves. And she admits that that was true in her case. So those are the books. Lastly, don't forget, we have the Daylights. Did you enjoy Ricky and Ran? They were amazing. Their record, if you have a teenager at home or somebody who's kind of young and into music, Greg and I, we both enjoyed this very much, but I'm telling you, this is super fresh and super cool music. You will enjoy those guys a whole lot. And then my two favorite CDs for Christmas, and if you haven't already got them, these are the two I would recommend. Phil Wickham's Songs of Christmas, and this one I love, Jars of Clay, Christmas songs. And last but not least, the New Year's coming, our 2014 calendar, Proverbs 31. For you ladies, every month there's going to be great reflection things there, as well as providing you with a beautiful, beautiful calendar. It's all